Coach, hey, thanks for joining me on this Simple Coach to Coach interview. Do appreciate you taking the time. I can't say how super excited I was for you to respond to say that you were willing to get under the bright lights of of my interviews. So very thankful that you've agreed to join me today.
No, thanks for asking. I've been off the boards and all that stuff, D3 soccer for a long time. So when you asked and I did a little research, there's a lot for us to talk about. If you want to scan my office here and check for dead animals, or we could do that. But I won't bite. We'll have a good chat.
Yeah. No animal sacrifices.
No, I haven't done that in a long time.
Let's get rid of that. Let's take that off the table. Hey, let's just start with the easy one. I think this is your 17th year as the head coach at Amherst.
That sounds right.
16, 17, somewhere in that range.
COVID messes up the math.
Yeah,
so you missed that 1 year. I got here. 2007 was my first season.
Yeah. So can you just talk about your soccer experience, like how, as a player, what have you, and then how did you end up at Amherst?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't much of a player, Paul. So that's
no, you can lie. Well, that's okay. I lie all the time.
There's too many witnesses. But I grew up in Winchester, Mass, and just had an unbelievable high school sports experience with soccer and basketball. Knew I wanted to play in college. Somehow got the opportunity to go to Drew and play at Drew.
Drew University in New Jersey?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's 45 minutes from my house.
Yep. Madison, New Jersey. And
yeah.
Loved every moment. Did not play one important minute in my 4 years. Lenny Armith is one of my favorite people in the world and one of the best coaches in the country. And Lenny, not begrudgingly, but was so great to me and let me, be an important part of the team. And, all 4 years there, we had a great program. The year after I graduated, they actually went to the national final and lost 2-1 to Trinity of Texas, which I was at that game, but had a great experience. Loved every moment of Drew. And when I got out, I was like, I want to coach. And Dennis Bond at Lafayette needed an assistant. I made, $1,500 that year. Spent 2 years with Dennis, who's one of my best friends in the world. Then got a chance to go out to Northwestern with Tim Lenahan, another amazing, legendary coach, before getting an opportunity to go to Duke with John Rennie and Mike Jeffries, who, two other legends. I mean, it's been a crazy experience as far as getting opportunities to work with some of the best coaches in the country and some of the best people in the country. And then after my year at Duke, I got the opportunity to come to Amherst, and it's been amazing. And it's the perfect spot for me, and I've loved just about every second of it, all the way for the last 17 years. So it's been great.
Yeah. What was it about Amherst? I know you have. I mean, I'll just say you have a ridiculous amount of degrees, master's degrees and whatnot. So is it just the atmosphere that Amherst really ticked the nerve for you?
I just love the Division III experience. So having played at Drew, getting the opportunity to go to places like Northwestern and Duke. At Duke, we were number one in the country. It was a wonderful experience, but it was probably different from what I was looking for. The community, the student athlete experience in Division III is what I went through and what I sort of believe in. And so Amherst is,
the place.
I think, crown jewel. And I still don't know why they hired me. I asked Suzanne Coffey, who took a chance on a 28-year-old guy. I don't know why, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I've had this chance because it's really, I have had a bunch of Division I opportunities since I've been here, and not even a tiny little cell in my body would want to do that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Because you've had tremendous amounts of success, but that's the one thing I've always asked. why aren't you right? And I don't mean that disrespectfully, like, right, a career progression. Your next, like you were at Duke, you did have all this Division I experience. That would be the next step? But that makes sense.
Well, somebody told me once, Paul, like, don't chase silver when you've got gold, right? And I think part of life is so easy for us to all like try to find the next brass ring, right? And it's like, dude, you're never going to be. It's always going to be another step on the ladder. And when you find something you love and you're passionate about, then find that and like treasure it and value it. And that's how I felt. But the other piece of the puzzle is it's also I'm the second best coach in my family. My wife was the UMass women's lacrosse coach for the last 12 years. They were like, I think her record in the A10 was 79-1. And so to find a place that we could both coach college sports and do like that's another piece of the puzzle. And Amherst has also treated me great, and I'm grateful for that. So,
all right. So I'm going to ask you, what is it about Amherst soccer, your program, that makes it so special in your mind, in your eyes?
Oh, so it's a great question. I mean, I think it's in my eyes, it's a place where like the care level of our students and alumni is at 100 out of 100. So there are people that have come through this program that care so much about Amherst soccer, care so much about their teammates, care so much about everything that we do, the unselfishness. Like that's what I think makes it special. I think we've also been blessed to have people attached to our team that have been like extraordinary. So a guy, Derek Shea, has been with me for the last 10 years. Derek Shea is as good of a human being as you'll ever be around. Kathy Jekanowski's been our athletic trainer all 17 years I've been here. She's an amazing person. I think the support we've gotten from our administration, like it's just like, I don't know, you probably, and I've mentioned this in different interviews, but like, remember that movie, The Truman Show, that Jim Carrey? Yeah. His whole life is scripted. That's how Amherst soccer's felt to me. Like there's been so many extraordinary people that have come through it. And so that's what I think it's about. And I don't know, I don't really care about the soccer and the wins and the losses and all that, but we have a bunch of guys that have set a standard of like caring and love and emotion that I think is, it's not like that most places. And that's what I think is special. I don't know.
So I would, as an outsider, I've always been surprised at what seems like watching you, obviously video and whatnot, the level of commitment that the players have to whatever Amherst soccer represents. And obviously I only see the facet on the field, but that to me is always something that comes out of the screen every time I watch. Is that level of buy-in to Amherst soccer, whatever that might be.
And I think, Paul, I also think the other thing is along those lines, like it's because of the people we've had come through the program. Like there's story after story about guys like being so unselfish. I've not had one person come to my office in the last decade that's been like, hey, coach, I think I should be playing. And in fact, it's gone the other way. A senior might be sitting in front of me, in my office, and I'll go to, hey, listen, Paul, we're going to take care of you this year. Like, you've been an amazing teammate. Like, whenever I had one kid go, coach, stop. Like, if I can help, put me out there. If not, we got a lot of good players. And so, like, that's a crazy thing as a coach to have. And that all turned around. I'll tell you, there's a moment where our entire program changed. One moment in time. Spencer Noon, our all-time leading goal scorer, this is 2012. We were in preseason, right? And Spencer was his captain, senior. I was doing the thing you're supposed to do, right? Which is we bring all the kids in preseason and you're writing down on the board. And I said, guys, I want to hear what you think we should do more of. And I want to hear what you think we should do less of. So I start writing things down on the board. Spencer, our best player, raises his hand. Coach, yeah, Spence, this is a waste of time. I'm like, all right, well, thanks for sharing your opinion. Like, why is this a waste of time? He goes, because whatever you think is best, we've got your back. We'll do whatever you think it is. Like, don't worry about what we think. We totally believe in you. And to have your best player say that in this moment.
Powerful. Yeah.
And so it's been like that I've felt that for 14 years. All the stories you hear about what a tough time this is to coach, Paul, I felt none of that. And that's attributable to the leadership and the foundation and tradition guys have passed on. And it's really easy to coach this group of guys and has been. So that's what I think is unique and special.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you, and that sounds like I love to hear that, right? Because if one thing was pretty clear in sort of what we've talked about, since there hasn't been discussions around soccer, you know what I mean? Soccer is just whatever brings everybody together, but you haven't talked about the wins, the losses. What you've talked about the individuals, and I think that's the good programs figure that out pretty quickly. That the soccer game itself is not necessarily the important part. It's all the other stuff, right, that brings the guys together. And do you, in your experience at the Division I level, was it similar? I mean, is this something you learned from another program? You know what I mean? From another program, like at Duke? Is that you learned it there, or are you saying it's very unique in your experience that Amherst is? That it just so happens that Amherst is like this?
No, I mean, I don't think. Well, first of all, Amherst soccer has been an amazing program for a lot longer than I've been, been here. So the foundation of success and tradition and all that was, Peter Gooding is a legend. Milton Gooding has done, did such an amazing job prior to the time that I was here. So I was certainly, stepping on their shoulders or climbing on their backs to keep it going and not screw it up. But I also think between Dennis Bond and Tim Lenahan, Tim's a Division III guy. He was at Stockton College for all those years before Northwestern. Yeah. It was that type of environment, and I took some things from Tim, some things from Coach Rennie at Duke. And I was only with the Duke guys for a year, but I still have amazing relationships. I think all those steps. I've never been part in my entire. I don't think that I've been part of a losing, knock on wood, because that could happen this fall. But a losing team, since I started playing high school sports. So I think that the lessons I've learned along the way have helped. And then you do your own. You're also true to your own personality, and that plays a role too. I mean, as much as Tim Lenahan played a role in shaping our program, hey, so did my mom, right? Yeah, and so did my grandparents, and so did my wife. These are the things, the lessons you take that hopefully you do a good job and don't screw it up. And,
All right, so I'm going to ask you $1 million question here, and I mentioned it before we started recording. There are two attitudes about Amherst. I'll just say Amherst soccer, because I don't know the attitudes to the Amherst, the school, but Amherst soccer. There are, and shout out to dad of your Australian player, because he's the one who sort of, I'll just say, visualized it for me in sort of his discussions of Amherst. You have folks who will run into a brick wall for Amherst soccer. Just so committed, love it. And then you have another group of people that think you are doing animal sacrifices in your office and are quite possibly the devil incarnate or as a program. Why? Help me understand why that is. There's nobody in the middle.
That's the first I've heard of this. I'm surprised that you say all that. No. I don't. You'd have to ask them, and I think all we can do is love what we do. But I think there's a level of passion that we bring to things, And when you introduce that level of passion and care, it brings out passion and care on the other side. And there's 430 programs, and we do things differently than a lot of those programs, and so people are going to probably, I think it's a little divisive, and I get that. And we also play, I think, a different type of soccer. I do think people have gotten it wrong, which I don't want anything to change, by the way. So, keep doing what you're doing to all those other 429 programs.
It's your competitive advantage, right?
But I will say, it's like you're the first person that's, and I respect the fact that you email me, even though I disagree with some of the things you said on some of the different podcasts, but that's okay.
Totally get it, and that's fine. That's why I'm doing this, but yeah.
Right, but I think, I don't know. I love that show, Ted Lasso. Do you watch Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
All right, so there's a quote in it that talks about, be curious, not judgmental, right? And I think, for a long time, no one's been curious about what we're doing something right. So, and I think there's a lot of different reasons that we elicit that. I do think right or wrong. No, it's wrong, but I think that we've looked a little bit different than other teams. I think that, diversity has been something that we've championed for the last 15 years. And the reason that I got off the boards a bunch of years ago and stopped reading them was because I think the euphemisms and the things that were said were really hurtful.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that is that, we've looked and acted differently, and we've been unapologetic for it. I think that's a big piece of it, is that, especially myself, I love what we do. My only concern is the 30 guys in our locker room. And that's why I think listening to some of these other interviews you've done, and you've had some amazing coaches, but I think sometimes, especially the younger guys, get it wrong a little bit, where they think that the responsibility lies in being accepted, or listen, I could, it's good. It'd be great to have everybody love everything that you do, right? But I don't care about that. I care about the 30 people having an extraordinary experience. And if I'm doing that, then I'm doing my job, right? And it's hard not to be defensive, but at the same time, I also think, Paul, everybody is totally entitled to their opinion, and I can't. That's not my responsibility. So,
I totally appreciate that. Totally appreciate that. I'm now curious. I'm now curious. And I'm not. What don't I understand about Amherst soccer?
From a playing perspective,
correct. Let's just. I've said all along. I think, as much as sometimes a lot of times your game drives me nuts. Just the way you play, right? And it is true. And I've said I just don't understand it, and that's probably a big part of the problem. I have always said, whatever you're doing and however you're playing, there's something going on there that has all of your guys 150% committed to it. So I'm clearly not getting that part, right? It helps to hear you talk about the importance of the team and Amherst and those in what we talked about, the cultural aspects as I wrap them up. But from a soccer perspective, what is it I'm missing? And I'll just tell you very briefly, I think you play in a third of the field, and that you get the ball into the attacking third, hook or crook, and then I think the quality of your players comes out. And I think I miss that the other 2/3 of the field, and that I'll just say that very, very high level.
Yeah, and it's a hard question for me to answer, because I think the assumption is that we're going to a training, or I don't know. None of this is rocket science, but I think you go through you'd think that we were, Derek and I, and Alex or whatever, we're saying, hey, this is what you do when you get the ball, right? Mm-hmm. That has never been the conversation. I think what people are missing is that, and I want to be careful that I'm not giving too much, is that
yeah. Suddenly you go, and whatever, because you let the secrets out.
Yeah. I'm still pretty competitive. The rock that our church is built on, from a soccer perspective, is pressure. It is what I care about. If there's a list of 100 things, pressure is 1 through 70.
Yeah.
And so you're going to make the game is going to become much more frenetic when you're trying to pressure for 120 yards. And it's very difficult, doesn't matter how good you are, to then all of a sudden go, all right, we won the ball. Let's
settle
calm down. Settle. That's hard to do. And we haven't, and it's totally cool to say, maybe you should do more of that or whatever it is. We've just been pretty pragmatic about, like, the number one thing is pressure. We do want to play in your half. And I don't know. I would also venture to guess that, like, our analytic sort of outlook on things has been pretty advanced for a while. And I'm really confident that the way that we operate is going to allow us to continue to be successful. And, I don't know. I mean, it's, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I will say, I've said it before, sometimes you watch teams who's the first time they've played you, and it's like lambs to slaughter. I mean that respectfully to the teams that play you for the first time or haven't played you in a long time. It's a little bit of lambs to the slaughter because they can't handle that pressure.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the part where maybe this is my character defect of wanting control, right? Like wanting to control. Like it just seems that frenetic, chaotic soccer that gets created because the intensity of your pressure gets lost on me. That's the part where I'm kind of like, I can't reconcile my preference for I want the ball, I want to keep the ball. I don't care where on the field, I want the ball, I want to keep the ball, right? Whereas I don't necessarily, again, just circumstance in the game, I don't necessarily see that being your driver. I definitely see the pressure. Like, I couldn't imagine playing on a field with you guys. Like, I think I'm a great soccer player and all that, but, my 50-year-old legs would let me down. 54-year-old.
Yeah, no, believe me, I understand that. And I also think, like, I'm not saying that we're right. I mean, there's a million different ways to do it, and that's why we all love soccer, right?
Right.
But I am saying that, like, at some point, it's interesting to me. Here's what I don't have: the gene that goes, you know what, we lost 2-0 today, but we played better soccer than your team. Like, I don't understand. I don't get that. So, like,
you still lost.
Yeah, like to me, like, we're trying to compete, and I think part of the lesson to student athletes is, like, soccer, for whatever reason, I don't know when it happened. I think it's a shortcoming of American soccer, where it's like you can rationalize everything. We lost 2-0 today. We hit the post 3 times, and well, listen, like, life doesn't work like that. No, we lost because we didn't score, and that's the reality of it, and that's okay. But, like, I think too much we try to coaches are trying to, like, do this cookie cutter thing, and I don't care about that. And it's unique to soccer, right? Like, you don't hear. I'm a big Celtics fan, right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, not good. But, like, you don't hear, oh man, Miami plays really bad basketball. Like, what? Like, we're not trying to split the atom or, like, save the whale. Like, we're trying to win games. Like, and if we beat Middlebury on September 9th or whatever date that is, like, and we connect 35 passes and score on a back heel, I'll be happy. If we take the ball out of bounds for 90 minutes and score on a long throw, I'm just as happy. And maybe that's, I don't know. Like, I do know that our kids love it. And it would be the other piece of the puzzle that has never made sense to me in the criticism is, like, it would be something totally different if we were defending and, like, being direct, and that was a miserable way to play. But we've scored like 20% more goals than any other NESCAC team in the last 17 years, and we get numbers forward all game long, probably to our detriment. Like, it's a pretty fun way to play. You know what I mean?
I would agree with you there.
So the kids, yeah, like we're more like, and there's no right or wrong, but we're more like Maryland soccer than we are like Akron soccer. Like but somehow in the Division III world, and I think it's because there's a little bit of a lack of imagination. Like, we're the bad guy. Like, I don't quite understand it.
I will say, and that's a good point that you raise, and I will, having watched it, you have a much greater commitment going forward than you have going back, right? In that you'll commit guys. If the play calls for it, your guys are going forward, and I do appreciate that. And which does leave you susceptible if a team can catch you in the right moment at the right time. They have the right guys where they have to be. They can at least put pressure on you and come as close to goal as you do when you get it in the attack, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah. It probably depends on the team. And
no, right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's interesting. All right. I'm going to have to watch videos now and other games and sort of to process everything you've told me about that. But okay, so let me ask, what is your overall assessment of how you did this past season?
I mean, I'm so I can get emotional talking about how proud I am of the guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's really easy to forget because we live in this world where like what happened 5 minutes ago is ancient history, right? I mean, but listen, we have this team that graduated a goalie, right? Yeah. Kofi Hope Gunn, who's now playing professionally with NYC SC2. Yeah. We graduated our entire back four. We graduated the National Player of the Year. Yeah. These are all different people. We graduated the Final Four MVP, offensive MVP. Nacho wasn't here last year. Mm-hmm. And we graduated our starting attacking midfielder, Sebastian Derby. So we were completely reinvented on the fly, right? And lost one game out of 21. And so, I mean, like, I am so proud of these guys that came together because that group, because of COVID and the fact that 10 of our seniors took their COVID year, came back in 21, that group, did the recording stop?
No, I'm still here.
Got it. Maybe it was on my end. Sorry about that. Yeah. But that group, they were little brothers that became big brothers pretty quickly, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just an amazing accomplishment and just loved every moment of doing that.
All right. So one of the things I just thought of, because I do sense that you're, for obvious reasons, you're a really competitive guy. How do you deal with losses? And knowing what you said earlier, right? Like, you don't buy into the whole, hey, let me come up with all of the not you, but what you just talked about, the excuses for why you lost, and so somehow that makes it better.
Well, I think it depends on, I mean, losing's part of life, right? So, like, you're going to lose games. And I think it depends on how losses happen, right? It depends on the rhythm of your season. It depends on, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to lose games. Mm-hmm. I think, and I've been, it's really funny. And if I can just take an aside here, because I think that this is also a moment to talk about the world that we're living in and social media and this sort of like, projection that everybody makes. We've been successful over the past 17 years, but the thing that I've been telling kids ad nauseum lately is I'm the biggest loser there is. So I've lost, Paul, in the NESCAC quarterfinal. I've lost in the NESCAC semifinal. I've lost in the NESCAC final. I've lost in the second round of the NCAAs. I've lost in the Sweet 16. I've lost in the Elite Eight. I've lost in the Final Four. And I've lost in the national championship game twice, once in penalties. So all the success, when we see people that come across our lives, you think, oh, man, that person's so successful. And, how great would it be to yada yada, or I see that person's Instagram and they were at that concert, or they were living this great whatever. We can't forget that like we're defined by the way that we approach adversity, and every single person in the history of the world, and certainly every successful person, has had adversity and find ways around it. So I think when you talk about losses, I think that it really depends, but I also think as a coach, your job is to like help these guys understand the lessons to learn. And another one of my proud moments was we won the national championship in 15. 16, we were undefeated, and we went up to Tufts, and we got our butts kicked. I mean, I think it was 2 or 3-0, but it was horrible. It was
bad.
2016.
Yeah.
And it was the first time we'd lost. We were undefeated at that point, and we were just bad. I mean, part of it's I played Justin Serpone like defensive midfield. Like it was an all around bad day. Our effort wasn't there. It was not good. And I was mad. And we had Bates the next day. So it was a NESCAC back-to-back.
Uh-huh.
And we go back to the film room because you got to do the scout on Bates. And here's the scouts. You guys better show up tomorrow, whatever. And I went home, right? Well, I get a call or I find out from somebody the next day, here's this really low moment. And they spent 3 hours in the film room after, and we do this thing within our program called the Team Hug. And we do it at least once a year, but it's taken on a life of its own. And what a team hug is they go around one by one and they take a couple minutes and they talk about if you're up, they'll talk about things that they love, respect, admire about Paul. And whoever wants to jump in will jump in, right? Mm-hmm. And so in this moment of like really difficult adversity, rather than go back and point fingers and say, oh, this guy didn't pass the ball there, or what's coach doing paying it, they did a team hug in that moment and spent 3 hours on a Saturday night reaffirming their commitment, care, and love for one another. That's it, man.
That's a win. Yeah.
That's a win.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say on the topic is like, some of the commentary is so dumb, but it's like, probably the most important night of my coaching career was when we lost the national championship in penalties in 21. Because teams don't need you when you win.
No.
You're good. They're good, man. Like they're happy. They're going to live forever. What gets lost in that 19, we went to the national championship, right? And lost to Tufts in the final. Then you have COVID.
Yeah.
And one by one, every single one of those guys decided to come back and put their lives on hold. Mm-hmm. And there's 430 teams in Division III. Yeah. So to fight all the way back after 2 years to a national final and have your heart broken, right? Like my job, and it will not just be my job on that one night, it'll be my job for the rest of my life, is to make sure those guys all know how unbelievable they did to get back to that moment, and how if they bring the same type of commitment and love and care to every single thing they do in life, it's not always going to work out the way that you want it to, because life doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But they're going to be so unbelievably successful if they approach every single thing they do for the rest of their lives with the same type of just dogged commitment and love for one another and unselfishness. And the result in the moment, hurts, but it's not about that. It is not about that. And so that's the most important night that I've ever had and will continue to be for that reason. And that's a loss. And that's part of it, right? That's part of what we're doing. So that was a really long-winded answer, and I'm sure people are sleeping now at their computers.
No.
If they are, before
I don't care.
Watching, but, I believe all that.
Yeah. This is the stuff I get goosebumps, right? Like, cause you're right. No team needs the coach when they win. And cause for whatever reasons, there's nothing to be said. There's nothing more that you're going to do that is going to make that win better, or what have you. You can make it worse, obviously, but better. So yeah. But in a loss, and in a painful loss, right? They need you more than ever in the right way, right? And that's interesting that your biggest moment was that loss, because that was down to the wire, right? Like it could have gone either way, and it just didn't. It just didn't go your way that game, right? And that, is, like you said, that is indeed life.
Yeah.
All right, so you went 14-1-6 for the season. You were third in the conference. You beat Connecticut in the tournament final, and then you made it to the NCAA's. You beat Houston and St. Lawrence, who I thought the St. Lawrence game was absolutely fantastic. Just the turnaround, right? Like I just thought it was really there was a lot there in that game where I was like, man, this is a great example of Division III soccer. Like there was so much encapsulated in that game from both teams, and then you lost to what I think was sort of a surprise, was Mary Washington. In PKs, right? It ended up going to PKs.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that run in the NCAAs and that game against Mary Washington? Not sure that you would judge it this way, but do you think it was fair? Like that?
Yeah. I think Mary Washington, Jason's done an amazing job with that group.
Yeah.
And, they're a good team. And so, well, first, the St. Lawrence game was awesome.
Yeah.
And, talk about, a contrast in style. And,
yeah.
Mike Toshak's great coach, but even better person.
Yeah.
They've done an awesome job. And, they'll be back, obviously. And Gavin's done a great job with Huston. That was actually, that was dodgy. They did it. They were really good. That was 0-0 at halftime, and we warmed down a little bit, but they had a great season. And then Mary Wash, yeah, man. I think when you have two forwards that both scored 12 goals or whatever they did, and you're going to be a handful. And their attacking mid was good. I thought the game. It's hard to win 6 games in a row in November. A lot of things have to go your way, and I thought we should have been up 1-0 in the first 30 seconds, and said we were down 1-0. And that's you can kind of. I'm not sure Jason would tell you differently, but you got to overcome calls and all that stuff, and that's part of it. And we had chances to win. We just
you did. It wasn't
Their goalie played great, and I'm happy for Jason. Jason's one of the most underrated coaches. I think what he did with North Carolina Wesleyan a decade ago, and he's built Mary Washington, got to a Final Four. I mean, incredible job. So, on the day, I think ultimately it was such a growing year for us that I have nothing but pride for those guys getting there, and it's hard. I mean, making the NCAA. Making the NESCAC tournament's hard. The NCAA is not a birthright. It's something that's hard to do. So any season, Paul, that you make NCAAs, you're just like, holy smokes, this is awesome. Yeah. And then to get to the second weekend, and I don't know, I'm proud of those guys.
Yeah. It is true. I talk, almost sometimes you talk about it, or I talk about it, oh, you made the NCAAs. It's not a big deal, but. Getting through, I always say, getting through September can determine your season. Getting through October healthy sets you up for a November, and then all bets are off, right? At that point, if you're getting into the dance, you're one of 64 or whatever the number is teams that you should consider you're one of the best. And holy smokes, right? And I don't think I personally pause enough to realize that in team, and. How difficult it is through that season, through a fall season, to get to that point. And man, if you can notch a win, holy smoke, now the mountain's higher, oh my gosh, I can't believe we got to, so.
And the second you take it for granted is going to be the second that you get caught. And so I think one fair criticism of me as a coach is like, I'm a pretty anxious Italian guy. Like, there has not been one game. I've probably coached 300 games.
Yeah.
There's not been one game that I've gone into that I've been like, oh, we're probably going to win today. Like, I'm expecting to get beat 3-0 every game we play. And, just winning a game, it is so hard to win a soccer game.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I don't know, like, I'm proud of this group. And then the competitive side of you goes, man, I would have loved to have played Bowdoin in the Elite Eight and Williams in the Final Four.
Yeah.
But that's
if
it's not yours, it's not yours, and it wasn't our time. So
there's so many things that just need to fall right, like the right or wrong injuries are going to, or health and not healthy, the game you draw, the weather on that particular day can totally make or break like your run. I don't think folks realize that how all of those little things add up.
And that's why it makes it incredible what Messiah did. Tough national championships, like dude, this is it is hard, and
that's true. To do it back to back, like, holy mackerel, man! Like what? It's like who's actually playing? Like, are they superheroes to one degree or another? Superpowers. So. What? You're already at a pinnacle. Like, you're like you elite. Your program's elite, right? Like, you do, again, that from the outside. Like, what ambitions do you have for your program going forward? You got a great culture. You get these kids who are bought in, who graduate, who come back, who do participate. Like, they're still very active. Like, how do you make it better?
I mean, I think you keep what I want to do is just keep making sure that kids know how much I care about them, and that keeping the culture going, right? I mean, to me, that's what it's about. Wins and losses will take care of itself, but I want to make sure that the 2029 recruit has the same experience. It's been so powerful for the kids that have come through for the last 15 years. And I think it's easy. I want to make sure, Paul, that as I get older, that, like, I'm able to still connect in ways that it has the same meaning behind them. And it's hard. That's not an easy thing to do. But for me, that's my focus, is to make sure that they know and have the same experience, because the world changes and we all change. But what doesn't change is, like, the need for connection, the need for friendship, the need for mentorship. And
more than ever.
More than ever. And so I want to be able to take the time to, like, one thing that's important to me that we do is I have lunch with 3 guys every single day during the academic year. Mm-hmm. So I go over to the dining hall, and every single day I'll have lunch with 3 of our guys. And 95% of the time it's, just shooting the bull on, what's going on, or, Man City game. That was a joke for my guys because they know I don't watch soccer. But 5% of the time, somebody's significant other broke up with them, or they're going through something at home, and that's where you're really needed. And I think, so that's my goal. And from a soccer perspective, like, I understand acutely, like, we've been so lucky, guys like Herman, Nico Pascal-Leon, Spencer, Thomas Bull, like, I'm going to forget people, over the years, to have these unbelievable players that are some of the best players in Division III in the last, generation. How do I keep that going? I don't know. Like, that seems difficult. And we're not always going to make the NCAAs. Yeah. We're not always going to make the NESCAC tournament. And that's going to be okay that we do. All that I care is that we keep trying at the level we've tried at. And you try your best in life, and then the hell with it. And that's going to be our focus. And, it's fun. Yeah. So that's what I want to just keep it rolling. And, would I like to win again? That'd be fun. But I also think, thank goodness, hands and knees at night, thanking God that that we did win in 2015, because that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to win a national championship. What did I learn from that? That doesn't mean that much. In the way, and what I mean by that is it means a lot in the relationships and in the team in achieving a goal.
Cool. Yeah.
But like from a personal perspective,
it doesn't define anything.
No,
right?
And I'm still taking the trash out, and like, nobody. Yeah. And so you thank God that you're not sitting there chasing that for a long time, because if you're chasing that, it's empty. It's empty calories. It's a donut. Yeah. And I think I'm grateful that I was able to do that young. And would I like to keep winning? Yeah, but my focus, and this is also something that can be a positive and negative. We don't talk about championships in Amherst like. I just want to beat Yeshiva on September 5th. That's it. Mm-hmm. September 6th. Like, that's my only goal, is to win the next game. And, I think that's always been our only goal. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's not, I don't know, from a big picture, maybe that wears, I don't know. But that's how we look at things.
Yeah. Well, I would say, like, the moment you start thinking about, your next goal isn't the game in front of you. It's that's when you stumble, right? That's when you trip up, because you're not focused in on it, and so your mind is somewhere else. Your feet want to be somewhere else. You're just going through motions, and that's when you can get hurt. That's
especially in NESCAC, where it's like
totally.
Middlebury will beat us 4-0 on September 10th or whatever that date is if we're not. Like tuned
100, in. 100%.
We will lose 4-0. Yeah. I will promise you that right now. You can come back to this, whatever. If we're not ready to go, we will get our butts kicked. And that's what happened to us first game of the year in 21. We went up to Bowdoin after 2 years off, and the game was 1-0. It should have been 2 or 3-0. Yeah. They kicked our butt. I mean, it was an embarrassment. So, like, the display, and now that then allowed us to fix our broken windows and like get back to a championship, and that probably wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been exposed so badly that day. But Bowdoin kicked our butt, and that's what can happen every single Saturday. In our league. Yeah,
that's for sure. Like, how do you think that playing NESCAC teams are the hardest games you will ever play in a season?
Oh, I can't answer that, because then it's going to be on somebody's pregame video.
That's very true. Like, on the board. Look at what they said about it.
I think...
No, but you know what I mean? Like, look, you run a gauntlet every time. And I will say this, and I think it happens in a lot of conferences where it's not always pretty, because it's like a street. It's not a boxing match; it's a street fight, And I think there's a lot to that, because everybody is so good, and so how do you beat the other team, right? Like, sometimes the soccer, no matter how good it is, it's not enough. You have to go out there and you have to will the other team into defeat. And how do you do that? You just go after it. That's what I mean. Like, what's that?
Yeah, one of my favorite games, and to your point, is like Middlebury 21 Elite 8. I mean, that was two like really committed teams that were, they're so well coached. They've got a bunch of good players, but it's Mortal Kombat. I mean, it's every header, every second ball, every set piece.
You're not slouching off on anything. Everything's going hard on a tackle. You're not letting a guy settle the ball. You're hammering him. Like, it's just,
It's not pretty. I get it. Yeah. But it's every Saturday in our league. And that's why I think, we've had an incredible run on a national level. NESCAC has.
As a league. Absolutely. I think I do think there is something, like you guys have to construct schedules to out of conference games. They have to construct it in such a way to compensate for what they don't get in their conference. And I don't think that's the case with you guys at all. I think every game ends up being that, right? Like just super highly competitive. And I think that's what I'm referring to. I wasn't wanting you to become fodder for somebody's motivational board. Hey, just really quick. What you had 6 ties, right? Like I only counted 5, but it said 6. So one of the NCAA's or tournament games counted as a tie. Middlebury, Colby, Williams, Bowdoin, Connecticut College. Like, what do you like not having ties? Or it strikes me as like you would want to go. If you could do the old school. You play until there's a winner and do like 8 overtimes, that's what you would prefer.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't. It's like the fun police came and took away like exciting. Like, why? I don't understand it. I'll tell you why. Because and some of these coaches that get on your podcast, like everyone wants to play Premiership. Like, listen, dude, this is college soccer. We had this really exciting thing, which was Golden Goal, right? Like, why would we take that? I don't understand. Yeah. And on top of that is you have unlimited subs. So if you're only playing 90 minutes, games are like 50 minutes long. Yeah. Like, because you're doing unlimited subs. Like, I don't understand. You can't have both. You can't have unlimited substitutions and do it with overtime. Yeah. It just doesn't. It's not. I just don't understand. You went to. It drives me nuts. Look at this year's World Cup. Right? Mm. All of a sudden, extra time was 12 minutes, 13 minutes, 14 minutes because you lose so much of the game. Yeah. We're the shortest games there are. This is the one fun thing we had. I didn't think overtime was long enough. I don't understand anyone that voted against, against having Golden Goal, and it's taken away. Like, I just don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. But whatever.
So what do you say to the guys who will say like, oh, it's for player safety and stuff like that?
I would say we have unlimited substitutions. You can use guys. And if you showed me that like there's less of something over a 5-year, then I'll be convinced. I just anecdotally don't think that it has made that 20 minutes makes that much of a difference. Yeah. So I don't know. We don't play any soccer. Our soccer season's like potentially 2 months long. Yeah. Right? Like it was the one exciting thing we had. Yeah. And because these guys want to pretend that they're like in the, it just makes no sense to me. So, and I've made that clear. I know you interviewed Brandon Bianco a couple of times. Yeah. Brandon's my guy. Great guy. He's the best. I call him. He's really good with like all the national. Yeah. He's in the rules committee. Yeah. And he should be the czar. He should be the permanent chair of the NCAA because he's really into it. Uh-huh. But anyway, I give him crap all the time about the Golden Goal thing because I think, like, well, what are we doing? Like, why? I don't have a good answer. And I probably can't be convinced, but.
Well, it is I've asked this or said this before. Was it a solution looking for a problem, or however that phrase goes? The problem looking for a solution. No, was it even a problem, right? Like that. I don't necessarily think it was. Like I don't. All of a sudden, it seemed to be like this is the issue.
Well, Division I wanted to do it. We kind of got bullied a little bit, and I think now this past offseason they changed the rules, federated rules, so you can now within a sport have different gender rules. You can have different Division I, Division II, Division III, which I think will change stuff. Because I do think Division I will go to limited substitutions. That'll never happen in Division III.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't. Absolutely.
It shouldn't, right? Like, why would you?
No idea. Yeah. But
why would you even want that at Division I? I'm just right. You might that could open a whole Pandora's box of right. You bring in. You're always at 12 men on the roster, and that every year you got to find another 18 to round because guys are going to be like, well, I'm not playing. I'm out of here, right? Like. If we think it's bad now, I'm
totally agree. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays itself out. Mm-hmm. I guess can't control that. The rules are the rules, and you.
Yeah. All right, so I got a couple more questions for you. I'll let you get on with your day. The first is, what does your your recruiting class look like that's coming in? Like, are you done? Do you have everybody set? Maybe you could talk a little bit about them.
Yeah. We're pumped. Yeah, we got a bunch of really good players. Mo Nuhu, kid from Hotchkiss, we're really excited about. Luka Oladipo. We got a goalie coming in. Lucas Searle. It's only a 5-person class. Lucas Liu, who's on that top soccer, top 150 list. And then and Riley Pretty is the captain for Shattuck, St. Mary's. We're excited. We think all those guys will come in and push to play right away. It's going to be difficult because I think we have a bunch of guys that have returned. We don't lose much. We don't lose much. That's not true. We lose a lot from which is not a lot of guys. So we lost Bernie White, the goalkeeper, who's playing professionally in Scotland now, who all you guys totally got wrong. The Bernie White thing. Bernie's a stud. Alex Shamazardi, who played for 4 years. Yeah. Barkey, who is big of a driver of culture, as you'll find. And then Nico Kennery, who, what an amazing senior year Nico had. Played left back for us, stepped in at center back when Ben got hurt. So, we're pumped. I mean, we lose a lot of really important guys, but we also think those first years, and maybe we'll have a transfer. Maybe we'll have some guys, some old friends come back.
7, 8, 9 transfers?
Yeah. Not like some of these, I don't know. You see Johns Hopkins women, with the grad transfer thing.
Yeah.
That's what I call, Paul, the Kevin Durant championship. There's an asterisk on that. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not into the grad transfer. Thank goodness we've not really dealt with it in the men's side. But I think that holistically, that's a bummer. And I think you hope that you have kids in your program for 4 years, and that's the way you build your roster. But we'll see.
Hey, the other one I wanted to ask you is, and just the importance of the culture you've created in at Amherst, and the commitment you have to these kids. How much of a priority are you looking? These 5 kids who are coming in, how much effort did you go through to find out? Are they good kids? Is this the kind of kid that we want in our locker room? Right, because they're bringing whoever they are into that, right, into the locker room, and is it destructive, right? Because I've seen, it's as hard as it is to get to a spot where you guys are, right, from a cultural standpoint. It'll take 1 guy, 2 guys, a season to totally destroy it, right? And so that's curious about sort of that balance that you might have.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of more of an art than a science, right? I mean, as you're going through the recruiting process, you're just taking in a lot of different cues from a lot of different places. You're watching them, you're talking to coaches, and then at some point when you decide to support them in the process, or they're going to make a commitment, you got to sort of know that they're your type of guy. And there's been plenty of people that have been really good players that I just think to myself, I just don't know if it's a fit. And that's not a referendum on them as a person. We have a really unique culture. Yeah. I would say that the way that things work now, it would be really hard to be a counterweight to the way that things operate. You really have to stick out. And I think what we're looking for is guys that are amenable to being part of something that's really selfless and bigger than themselves, and has a responsibility. It's advanced citizenship. And I think
that's awesome.
Not everyone's going to come in with that, but you have to have the ability to go, all right, what is this all about? And by the way, we also want people to be themselves. The dumbest saying in sports is, oh, there's no I in team. That's not true. There's a million I's in team. And we want to celebrate who those people are. And we don't want to create cookie cutter people at all. Yeah. That's not what we're about. In fact, we're the opposite. But within the context of hey, can you enjoy being part of this thing that's really special? I mean, it's funny. Like I just a quick story about I don't know. I was at the Wesleyan Tufts game this past year. If you remember, Wesleyan won 1-0 on a set piece. Wednesday night, rainy, right? And we were sitting there. I was with another coach. I won't drag him down by telling this, but it's like pre-games, right? And they're doing the intros, and the Wesleyan guys get introduced, and they're all on their feet, and they're clapping, and then the Tufts guys are clapping, and they're going back to their bench, and everyone's bringing it in, and they're almost like yelling at each other, and the energy was like at a 10, right?
Yeah.
And I looked at, and the guy I was with, there's sort of a pause. And the guy I was with goes, that's your fault, right? and I thought to myself, like, what a legacy. Because I do think that's what, our team doesn't sit down on the bench. Whether you're the first guy or the 30th guy, you're as part of every single thing that we do as everybody. And I think to answer your question, you have to attract people and be disciplined enough to bring people that are going to be able to bring that same amount of care and energy to everything that you do, and that are going to want to be pushed. And because I do think kids today, I sound like I'm a million years old, but want the discipline and structure and boundaries that we all had. They just need it differently. And so I don't want people to leave, Paul, 20 years from now and go, oh man, Coach Serpone was a great guy, but I wish he pushed us harder. I want them to leave and go, that dude's nuts. He cared about me more than anybody that I've ever been around. And for some guys,
so much, he pushed me to my limit.
Right.
Which you don't get. You definitely don't get.
And at some point, I think coaches make the mistake sometimes, and I've had to learn this, is for some guys, that's going to mean chewing them out. Like, do you remember that kid Cutler Coleman, the little guy? Cutler wouldn't do anything unless I was yelling at him. Cutler needed – he thrived on it, right? And that's kind of how I was.
Yeah.
My mom and she's yelling at me all the time. Cutler just needed that. And that's – to push Cutler, I needed to be –
Get on him.
Get on him.
Yeah.
Then there's other guys I've coached that they do one thing and you can feel their eyes right on you because all they want to do is please. And so for those guys, I would never get on them.
Yeah.
I need to pull them aside and go, hey, you did a great job there.
Yeah.
Just a little more of that. And I think that balance is so important, and that's where it is individual. And so I can deal with a lot of different personalities. As long as the foundational stuff is the case, and the foundational stuff hasn't changed much. Another thing that makes me really proud, Paul, is that we have this thing. So if you're 8th grade biology, I don't even know if biology is taught in 8th grade, but you used to go to Barnes and Noble and they would do a one sheet, right? So everything you really needed to know about 8th grade bio would be on this one sheet you could buy at Barnes and Noble. Well, every fall we give a one sheet out to all of our student athletes. And everything you need to know about Amherst soccer is on this one sheet of paper. Yeah. And we laminate it, give it to the guys every fall. Well, I'm getting goosebumps now. But I get all these pictures from people that are 30, 32 years old in their office. That one sheet is up on their office wall.
Yeah.
And so, Max Ficca, who's one of my favorite human beings on planet Earth, here's a guy that was on the Forbes 40 under 40 list, or 30 under 30. I forget which one. He'll get mad at me. But that's up on his office wall. And, to me, Max is a great story. Quick Max story. He ended up being an All-American stud, really good player. Max, his first year, we were going on a trip, and it was after 2008 when the whole financial crisis and the budgets were shrinked on all the teams, and you couldn't bring everyone on your away trips.
Right.
Well, Chris Doney comes to me, and he's like, "Dude, we forgot. We got to bring somebody in the film." And I was like, "Oh shoot!" And Max was in my sight, my line of sight. I go, "Bring Max." I go, Max, come over here. He goes, hey, coach. He's a first year. I go, listen, dude, good news, bad news. Good news is you're going to come with us on the trip. Bad news is you can't dress and you're going to
video guy. Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, yes. And but the point is, Max had it. Max has always had it.
Yeah.
And the reason he's going to make an absurd amount of money and be unbelievably successful is not because he's so smart, and he is, not because he's got all these, skills that no one else has. It's because he has that thing that goes, I just want to be part of things. And I'm going to find a way to be useful, and I want to be part of teams. And like, that's gold. And celebrating those things is what I think we try to be really intentional about. And I've told that Max Ficca story over and over because he's as good of a leader as I've ever been around. And you got to be able to give yourself over. And gosh, I've been so lucky to have a million of those guys and have a million of them right now. I mean, this group is so enjoyable to be around. It's just the vibe has been so good for a bunch of years now. I can't wait till August rolls around just to be around them every day and be a small part of it.
All right, Coach. This was, first of all, let me just say, this was absolutely fantastic because I thought we would get in, again, me thinking, like I was going to talk about the soccer part. And I am very pleased to say that the soccer part, I get a lot more because it's not about the soccer. The soccer is just, and I enjoy hearing that. The second thing is, one of these days we will have another conversation where we will talk about the soccer on the field, and we'll hash that out. But until then, I do appreciate the time. This was fantastic. This is really good.
Yeah, Paul, I appreciate it. And again, like I do think the time that you probably have to give to all this, like from a big picture standpoint, like Division III, these guys work so hard, and for them to get for all these coaches and programs, and I've learned a lot just this weekend when I watched some of those videos about some of these schools that I hadn't even heard of, I think is amazing. I would say that I hope that there are, we are in this time of like, I could care, like, doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm good. But I do think the way we talk about, and I'm not talking to you, but I'm talking 30,000 foot, the way we talk about some of these kids, and they are kids.
I totally agree. I'm a big culprit of that too. Like I have that streak in me. Like and it's soccer, and I always try to say, I try to come back to, they're soccer players, and then I try to and I always end up remembering, right? These guys got feelings, they got parents, they got, right, like, and I got to be a little bit more respectful of that.
No, I'm not calling you up, but I do think that a lot of times the internet,
totally,
some of those message boards become difficult,
toxic,
and I think we're at this moment in time where there's depression and anxiety rates have doubled for college kids since 2016.
Yeah.
They're under a lot of pressure, and so I just, for everybody watching, and I need to be mindful of it as a mentor and a leader and a coach as well. Like I hope that at some point you understand that these kids are all of them, not certainly not Amherst, but just everybody are extraordinary. And they're playing a college sport, and they're trying their best. And I think we need to do a little more celebrating them than calling them out. And it's really easy to call them out, but it's also, I think it can be damaging. And kids, if you want to call somebody out, call me out. I'm good. I can handle it. Although the one person, Derek Shea, my assistant, there are a couple of times guys have taken shots at Derek. Like, believe me, you can get in a you can come at me and make moral whatever. Yeah. Not Derek Shea. That guy's is one of the best human beings, one of the best soccer coaches. He's the principal of elementary school right downtown. And so you're way out of your league if you're taking shots at Derek Shea.
I don't think I've taken. I don't think I've taken shots at him.
Not you.
Yeah. But I would agree in general. Like, just so you know, part of the reason for this whole channel was, again, there's a bunch of reasons, but one of them was like, look, you got these kids. again, I'm not valuing different divisions, or regardless, you have these student athletes that are committing themselves to not only the academic part, but the sport part. And doing both of those is very difficult. Individually, they're very difficult, but doing the two of them is extremely difficult. And I think we need to, part of this is to celebrate. Hey, I see it. I see it. Being a student athlete is no greater, honor to see these kids go out there and do what they do, knowing all of the stuff they have to put in and into it. And so I'm with you there.
It's amazing. It's amazing what they do. Yeah. It's great what you guys are doing, and what you're doing, because I'm sure that this is, at least a labor of love. It probably takes a lot of time and effort.
I make $1 million a day.
Well, I did tell you when you emailed me that I wanted.
Yeah, the revenue share. My lawyers, the SimpleCoach lawyer team is working on. It's pretty comprehensive, so it's a lot of paperwork. But you'll get your revenue share.
All right,
it's in the mail.
Keep reports in business. We need our own. It's always quiet until we start to get rolling at the end of the year, and then people. Then comes then the animal sacrifice and no, it's all
like
good.
I said, the am hater.
The am haters.
That to me. I saw that. I thought that was just absolutely priceless when
there will be something that I said on this podcast. The am haters jump on, and there's going to be a 18-page thread. My favorite was the one dude. We were laughing. I was crying laughing with an alum the other night. The one dude had like a 14-page post about how actually us making the Sweet 16, 15 years in a row wasn't that impressive. Like, that's a zag. I'll give you that. Like,
that's a take.
That's a take. It doesn't matter. There will be something. But anyway. All right. Appreciate all you guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
If you like this show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can also find me on anti-social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks. This is a message from my chief marketing officer. I think this keeps him happy.